Why is LGBT representation in TV, film considered woke to some individuals? There are two ideas of why people think this. 1. For so long, there was little to no representation of any kind in TV, film that the addition of it now feels so radically different that people don't know how to handle it. 2. Writers use LGBT characters as marketing devices in order to drive viewership. Velma is a good example of this. God-awful show, but they tried to use the fact that Velma was bisexual in order to give viewers a cheap reason to care. To be clear, whether or not she is in the story is not the point, but rather the way it was marketed and presented. As with most things, the real answer most likely lies somewhere in between. Openly gay massive film buff here. I understand both sides of the argument. I really dislike LGBTQ representation when it feels forced and blink and you miss it and detached from the greater story. It makes me feel like they weren't even doing it for me, but to check boxes and pander for profits, like the random gay kiss in Lightyear that meant nothing in the greater plot. It would have been different if they made that character have a greater purpose for the story. It feels like it was just thrown in last minute for pandering because of the anti-woke climate. I strongly appreciate it when the filmmakers and writers can make the character relationship feel appropriate to the greater story. Some examples that I feel did it very well are Brian Tyler Henry in Eternals, Robin from Stranger Things, The Last of Us Episode 3, which literally brought me to tears on a different level because of how appropriate and tasteful the portrayal was. That emo is the best example of representation. I don't think I will ever forget watching that episode. I seriously just sat on my couch for 45 minutes after the episode was over, sobbing from both sadness and joy because of how touching that love story was. TLDR. Many gay people loathe when they do it to pander, but appreciate it when they have a purpose in portraying it and make us feel included. It's not real representation if you do it just to appease people. Velma is a great example of this. That 90s show, etc. The shows that tend to do a better job is introduce them slowly as part of the character, not introduce them as their sexuality. I would say Rosa in Brooklyn 99 was better, where her bisexuality didn't take or change anything in her character that they built up for 45 years. There have been some LGBT characters that were great in shows, but when their only thing is being LGBT and they don't further the general story, then the forced inclusion just rings untrue. I think people, regardless of the side of the argument, find LGBT characters to be very self-indulgent. They end up being Mary Sues where they can do no wrong. They try really hard to make up for the lack of representation in their own show or in media in general. They are never just gay. They are exceptionally gay. You know? They don't attend a Pride event to check out what it might be like. They are running the Pride event. They don't face discrimination. They are the entire anti-discrimination committee with 3 protests planned for this month. It's not down to earth even for the audience represented. A lot of people in the comments are saying that the character being gay has to further the plot. But why? Does every straight character need their straightness to further the plot too? Gay people don't exist only when they provide something to your personal life. It feels forced on most stories. Can someone do a compare and contrast as to what TV shows, movies actually do LGBTQ representation? Well, while what others can be considered force, some may have valid critics of what shows, movies seem to force the agenda, but I can also see someone claiming woke and force simply because they are a bigot. So can people please lists of examples of who did it right and who did it wrong? There's a difference between bad representation and what gets cried about being woke. Bad representation is a subjective thing. When media includes token characters in a way that feels disingenuous or disrespectful. Woke is what conservatives scream when any media acknowledges socially progressive causes. It doesn't matter if the representation is good or not. They're just mad the representation exists at all and will immediately jump to their favorite buzzword, gay characters? The woke media is attacking marriage. Quote, trans characters? The woke media is pushing gender ideology. Quote, female characters with agency? The woke media is pushing radical feminism through M&Ms. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Quote, because they just try way too hard to literally say, look at us. We are representing LGBTQ. Quote, painfully hard. Nobody really cares. As much as some folks. Media would have you believe. Woke is simply the knowledge of those being marginalized. The difference can be explained in how Black Sails used a story about a gay couple. What an incredible way to move the story forward. Bravo! A man falls in love with another man unexpectedly. And when the man he loves is destroyed by a father and country who are bigoted, he spends his life burning the English Empire. It was unbelievable. The opposite end of that is a show like The Wheel of Time, which takes a phenomenal central story, makes all the men in it simps and pansies, gives already important women more importance, and blows all its screen time on useless woke garbage, which crushes the original story under the weight of why the hell did you do that? The baffling part of the Wheel of Time example is that there are tons of representation in the original story. The correct answer is, why? If you're left asking the question why, the producers are already on the wrong track. Before Will and Grace. Years ago, gay characters were not on TV in an open and welcoming way. The gay-like characters were comic relief and heterosexual. Actual gay characters used to be killed off. My lord. Having a conservative upper-middle-class black family on TV was woke in the 80s. And still ruffles feathers. Everything that isn't standard wonderbread white people on TV will be called woke. Remember, woke means to be alert to prejudice and discrimination. Because those people don't want to be exposed to gayness in any form. To them, including a gay character in a TV show is a dramatic political statement with a political ideology they do not agree with. Because the word woke is being used in a negative way by very negative people. People who don't want to see anything except for themselves represented in media, amongst many other things. So when they see anyone who isn't, well, a white male, they scream, woke. To be woke is be awake and seeing the things going on around you that others either don't see or don't want to see. They see it as a bad thing. But it really is a good thing. Because there is a severe lack of representation of us in media. So when media decides to include us, it's a really good feeling. We feel like we can relate to those characters. Representation is so important. I can't wait until one day it's normalized and people stop seeing it as woke, as if it's a bad thing. And people making fun of things for being woke. And see it as just a normal everyday queer person in a piece of media and stop saying people are pandering just because we exist. That is the dream. It seems nowadays people are calling things woke in a way to complain about it in negative way. Because they simply don't like that we are finally being included more frequently in media. We are all around you whether we are the main character or a passive background one. So to see it being represented that way in media is relieving. Haters gonna hate. Because conservatives have no clue what being woke means and slap that label on anything they're confused about. It's when it seems forced in or when they replace previously well-established characters with such people. A character shouldn't be in a movie or show or game because they are LGBT. It feels disingenuous and usually pretty obvious. People want a well-written, interesting character who maybe happens to be LGBT. But if their sexuality seems like the central focus of their existence, it makes for an extremely boring character and likewise story. Because a lot of mainstream writers think that sexuality, gender is a person's entire identity. Now for an increasing number of people in the real world this is becoming the case. Just look at the insanity that is TikTok. But in character writing it's just shallow. Companies use it to save their terrible shows. And blame homophobia when their terribly written show bombs harder than a turd in a toilet.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.